appreciate the conversation. It's been a good one, and it's always good to have a reasoned conversation on a potentially explosive topic. I enjoyed the comments of our colleague from Kiehl. I think as we talk about the size of the permanent fund dividend and what it is appropriate to use for public services, as the member sitting next to me pointed out, versus PFDs, we have to be careful that we're dealing in fair comparisons. I think comparing what Alaska spends with the constitution our state has to what other states spend is kind of comparing apples and acetylene. We have one court system in this state, not state courts, county courts, and municipal courts. We have one system of education and a constitution that calls on the state to fund it, and we could go on and on. So I think when we talk about this issue, it's important to look to Alaska and look to what our constitution sets up and our system of government. I think it is important that we talk a little about the laws we have, and I appreciate the conversation by the member in front of me about what we refer to as the Senate Bill 26 draw, the POMV draw. I read the statute with a little bit different eye than my colleague does from East Anchorage. 3713-145 talks about the percentage of the market value of the fund that can be appropriated in a year. Doesn't specify what goes to the general fund or what gets transferred. It doesn't draw distinctions. 5.25%, later 5% of the value may be appropriated. And so, while I don't have his law degree, I disagree with the lawyerly interpretation that the words can be parsed to mean something other than the bill without the amendment draws more than a sustainable amount, more than a legal amount, from the permanent fund. That brings us, I think, to the conversation a member from the Kenai Peninsula had about this uniquely Alaskan asset. It is that, and thank heavens for it. Thanks to the people who invented it and came up with it. It's an asset whose values we argue about a lot and whose use we argue about a lot. But ultimately, I think it's imperative that we look at maintaining the value of that asset for future generations of Alaskans. That we not get so focused on the needs, whether the public service needs or the personal interest needs of Alaskans today, that we lose sight of the value of that asset for future generations. I got 2 kids at home. Certainly this would be the time, if I were serving my personal interests, for the biggest PFD possible, but that's not why any of us is here. And I don't mean to imply that anyone has that as their motivation, just that I think it's critical we not overdraw the fund, that we not draw more than a sustainable amount. And so I speak in favor of the amendment, Madam President, so that we can preserve the true value of the permanent fund, that uniquely Alaskan asset, not just for our kids, but for their kids, and for Alaskans into the permanent future.